cassette tape that you want converted to CD or MP3 format? Do you need a demo CD, radio ad, a DJ or even a sound system for your wedding, birthday or special occasion? Then why not get in contact with KTR Records on 07931 152 448 or check out our website on www.ktrrecords.com. We have been in business since 2004 and also undertake community projects. So for your remixes, duplets and all your sound editing needs, why not contact KTR Records, official sponsor of World Jam Global Radio. KTR Records, coming your way.
I was terrified about sharing the vulnerabilities of people with difficulties reading and spelling words. However, I can see the value in sharing, and I have taken the time to make some notes about this in my book, Dyslexic: The Silent Difference. You can get your copy now at www.a1tribe.com or amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Thank you again, everyone, for your support.
Red Promotions and Highly Blessed Promotions give you Tobago 2020. Tobago 2020, the ultimate carnival experience. Landing on Sunday, 23rd of February 2020. The all-inclusive holiday of a lifetime at an unbeatable price, starting from £1,349 for 7 nights, all-inclusive, with 10 nights optional. There will be fun-filled day and night events like the popular all-white party, pool party, barbecue boat ride, plus the carnival experience and much more. Music by some of London's finest, Courtney Melody, Commander B, D-Mac, TC Fords, DJ Matt and Euro Millions and more. So join us and let's live our best lives. For general inquiries, call 07729 190 026. For booking and more info, call SN Travel on 0207 254 0136. Quoting Tobago 2020. Sponsored by VibesFM.net, MrMighty.co.uk, SN Travel and
World Jam Global.
Do you like music like this?
Great music all the time.
Or like this?
The music you love.
Maybe this.
Great music that makes you want to turn up the volume loud.
Or life track like this.
Especially where human life is concerned. Surely, sooner or later, people will realize that lives actually matter.
Then you're in the right place. Keep it locked to World Jam Global, where music is harmony.
Music 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, I'm a World Jam. Hotter than them.
See live schedule.
World Jam Global Radio. This is clarity.
I want to say a big good evening going out to each and every single one of you watching from all across the globe. It's Saturday night at 6 o'clock. It's time for another Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio. We are coming out to you live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. And we are live on Facebook.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
We've been running a series of Healing Through the Pain with some of our roundtable guest members. And last week we started off with Yolanda McNair. We should have had Vader Washington doing the story on Alton Sterling this week, but unfortunately Vader could not make the show this week. And we're going to be putting her back to February, so keep your eyes peeled for the return of Vader Washington. That's the auntie of Alton Sterling, a young man who was murdered while selling CDs outside a store.
I was swimming in women.
We're still going to follow that up with a part 2. But due to circumstances beyond Vader's control, and she sends her apologies, it gave us an automatic opportunity to bring in the part 2 that we promised on Yolanda McNair's Healing Through the Pain.
Trying to cope with this living hell.
Let's say a big shout out going out to Vanessa Whirling in San Antonio, Stephanie Babb, another member of our roundtable team.
I paid for my crime.
Carol, and I can't spell his name, it's Polish.
For my crime.
Hugh Smith in South Wales.
Already did my time.
Teresa Smith in London Town. Craig Kawanda, who's also in London Town.
My time. I paid for my crime.
Big shout out to you all. Thank you for following.
I wasn't drunk.
Please use this opportunity to go to my Facebook page and share this stream live. Share it live to your own walls, so your friends and followers can see it. Share it live to any groups that you're associated with.
Kind of stupid shit.
There is no hiding place for the truth.
Since I've gotten older, the life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb, my brain was so...
And the truth will out.
But I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison. Prison.
Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Already did my time, paid for my crime. Already did my time. Pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime, pay for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. Already did my time, I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail. Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Adacia Miller was a young girl whose life was cut down in the prime.
My crime.
24 hours before her 25th birthday. In fact, less than 24 hours before her 25th birthday.
Already did.
Murdered at the hands of an off-duty officer celebrating a party in his own home.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own.
And we're just hoping that we're going to be able to take you through this journey with Yolanda.
To you and you.
And for those of you that have suffered a loss,
shit.
grievance,
and think it over since I've gotten older. The
pain.
To live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb. My brain was so...
Our prayers that we help you through the healing process.
Me and Billy the Kid...
As our roundtable team open themselves up,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Revealing and sharing their vulnerabilities, their hurt, their pain, their struggles, and their journey.
Already did my time.
I pray that you'll get an understanding
Already did my time.
Of how you too
I paid for my crime. Already
can come through this.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison. Prison. Prison.
Well. Trying to cope with this living hell. Trying to cope with this living hell. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Trying to cope with this living hell. With this living hell. This living hell. This living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Please don't forget we are live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com. We are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, and we are live on YouTube. Please use this opportunity to share this live stream on your walls, on your pages, on your friends' pages, on your groups,
and lead us not into
as we begin to share the truth
evil. For thine is the kingdom.
Of not just how Adacia Miller was killed,
Amen.
But how her family have had to fight to come through this journey.
Pay for my crime. All those drive-by killings, stop them.
Alongside Yolanda McNair, once again, we've got D. Martin and Patrick Lane to support.
Who was out sin?
They're two stalwart members of our roundtable team.
I'm trying to get...
So stand by. We're going live in just a few moments' time.
And have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen. Statewide, worldwide. And put down those knives. Stop stabbing each other. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio. You can get us on our website, which is www.worldjamglobalradio.com. We are streaming live right across the world via all forms of social media platform, and you can find us particularly live on Facebook, live on www.worldjamglobalradio.com, live on Twitter, and that's both the World Jam Global Radio Twitter feed, the Issues Today Twitter feed, and also the my personal Twitter feed, and you'll also find us live on Facebook. So without any further ado, I just want to introduce you to just one of our supporting team members. We'll go to Patrick Lane first, and we'll just introduce Patrick, and we'll have a little chat with him, find out how his week's been, what he's been up to, why he's here, and how he's been enjoying operating and supporting with the Round Team Table. How are we doing, Patrick? How are we doing, Patrick? It's okay, I've got you now, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I've got you.
All right, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kervin?
It's a pleasure to be here with you again, Patrick. It's always an honor.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this show because I think it's really important. And it's something that really, even if you haven't gone through what a lot of us have gone through, healing is something that I think is needed for every life. You know, we all have these things that we need to heal through. And so I'm really excited about what we come up with this show and the help that we're able to provide to our listeners today. It's going to be a good show.
Amen, Patrick. And obviously, because of your own personal experience, you have a real first-hand knowledge of some of the things that Yolanda is going to be talking about, right?
Absolutely. It is a process. It's been in May, it'll be 6 years since Taylor was taken from us. And that process of healing is arduous. It's a struggle. And for our family and for all the families that I've talked to, it's an ongoing thing. It seems as if it will be something that we're dealing with pretty much for the rest of our lives. So this is an important show that people need to hear.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Patrick. And we're going to be back to you soon. Let's just introduce Dee. I came across Dee some time ago. And when I did come across her, it was absolutely because of the story that was behind it. I was so desperate to do this story. I got in touch with Dee, and from the time that I've connected with Dee, well, she's like my baby sister now. You know, she's like my little sis, you know. And I consider us to be family. And even with the pain and the trauma and the stuff that she goes through, she also sets aside time to be part of this wonderful work that we're doing here and offering help and support and advice and commentary to people who are going through these sorts of issues when it comes to things pertaining to police brutality or unlawful killing. But it's a pleasure to have Dee Martin, the sister of Andre Gladden, alongside us once again here today. How are we doing, Dee?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Just great to hear your voice and know that you're doing okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. This week has been, back and forth, going back and forth, both happy and sad. But preparing for the shows each week kind of gets, my mind off of my particular. So being able to stand and support everyone on the round table and just kind of be in touch with each other day to day, that's it's truly a pleasure for me, given the circumstances. But the platform, the roundtable members, and the platform initially is ideal. It's a must-have platform for the current situations we're going through. A lot of families are going through. So it's definitely being in the beginning, and I mean very beginning of the healing stages. And I definitely have not gotten there yet, but this platform helps me to do that. So it's definitely a learning experience hearing from the roundtable members as to how they maneuver through the days throughout the years. This is Andre's that has been gone, taken from us about a year and some change now. So I'm very new to this situation hitting the family this close. So it's definitely a learning process for me. And like I said, just hearing from different families and how they maneuver is exceptional for me. It's a full learning lesson. So I'm privileged to be able to be a part of it.
Amen. Thank you very much for that. Before we go any further and introduce Yolanda, I suppose you've probably noticed, you can't but notice that TJ is not with us this evening. TJ has fallen ill. We've had a message sent over by her husband Brian, who says that TJ can't be with us today. She's not feeling too well at all. Our thoughts and our prayers are with her. And TJ also, although she's been my producer for just over a year, TJ herself has gone through this probably longer than most of them put together, in all honesty. I think she lost Travis many years ago through police brutality and unlawful killing, and has also found this process and what we do here a real remedy and a healing process for her, as she's it stops her from just focusing on her own issues and allows her to support and help other people get to a place with theirs. So we're missing her. We'll be missing her interaction, and I'll tell you what, I'll be missing her prompting throughout the entire show, as she's often prompting me with either questions, suggestions, or just reminding me what time it is and I'm about to run out of time. She's a very bossy boss, let me just say this. But we love her and we miss her, and the fact that she's not here today is going to be a tremendous dent in what we're trying to accomplish, because she brings so much to what we do here. So we wish her well. We pray that she gets well very quickly, and she's back with us as soon as possible. And all of this we do pray in Jesus' name. Amen?
Amen.
Okay. So without no further ado, let us just introduce our guest of honor today. And she is the mama of the house. Let me just, and again, maybe I didn't give Patrick the introduction that I should have given him, because it's just such that's my brother. That's my brother. That's my brother in battle. That's my brother in Christ. That's my brother. And I'm so honored to share this platform and work alongside him. But I will say about Yolanda, I met Yolanda when we first did this story of Adacia, and it's probably a couple of years or so ago now, maybe 2 to 3 years even. I'm not sure exactly how long. Yolanda might be able to pull me up and tell me exactly when we did the first one. I did notice recently that there was a memory that came up in my Facebook about the first time that we did Adacia's story. But I forgot to log the date. But it wasn't too long ago from this time of the year, I think.
No.
But here's the thing. From the moment I connected with Yolanda, there has been a real connection and a drive to bring these stories to light, to bring them to life, to give families a platform where they can come and tell their stories, they can speak their truths, and they can almost unburden themselves in a way that the media, the national media in general, does not permit them to do so. We've witnessed over the years how most people's stories and lives have been shut down the moment the tragedy has occurred, and the criminalization and the victimization of the victims in order to justify the kill, the shoot, or the lack of accountability on behalf of law enforcement has really been a real stumbling block for many families who found it very difficult to get past that first hurdle. Some of them are still grieving years after they've buried their loved ones, because the stories that have been told have not allowed them to grieve. They've been too busy fighting to clear their names, their loved ones' names, and reset the scales of justice that have portrayed their loved ones to be some kind of gun-toting thug that deserved to die. Now, here's the thing. Before we go any further, I don't know if any of you have, but I was asked to watch a program the other day, and I did watch it, and it was with Kerry Washington, the woman that was in Scandal. And it was a program called American Son. Has any of you watched that?
Yes, I have. Saw it the day it came out.
It's a powerful movie. and it tells the story of the perception of racism from two different parents, one white and one black, raising a black child, and all the different perceptions you might get in watching that when you're talking about the way that he was first portrayed by the police officer at the station when the mom turned up, to how his father saw him or believed he should grow up to be after he got through the. I mean, some people won't get that, but if you haven't watched it, I urge you to watch American Sons. It's not a true story. It's a dramatization, quite fictional, but it's an absolutely powerful drama that tells a real story of what real people go through. And when you see the way that transpired, and in the end, they left crying in it. I don't want to give away the story really, but you just need to go and watch it. All right, you just need to go and watch it. That's all I'm saying. Go and watch it, and when you've watched it, we'll have a conversation afterwards. But Yolanda, all I can say is it's been an honor and a privilege knowing you over the time that I have. The amount of support that you've given to TJ, my producer, the amount of support that you've given to me and the show in general, and more importantly, all of the families that you've connected with, helped and supported through Protect Our Stolen Treasures. It's been a real honor working with you and to be able to share this particular story of your daughter, which we don't always bring up, and you don't always bring up, even when we're talking about stuff that are quite personal, and you may be able to use reference. You very rarely ever bring up Adesha's story, which is why we decided to start this healing through the pain with you. We started it last week. We're going to go again with it this week. But first and foremost, just introduce yourself to our audience, and then we're going to do a quick recap before we move on with the show.
My name is Yolanda McNair. I'm the mother of Adesha Miller, a beautiful young lady whose life was cut short by an ignorant police officer that felt self-entitled, whose self-image is being perpetuated by the legal system and police. But as a result of losing my daughter the way that I did, I created an organization called Protect Our Stolen Treasures with 3 other family members who lost their loved ones to police brutality and murder. And we have, over the course of the last 3 years, grown chapters in 5 other states. And we all work to help loved ones heal, to find justice, to how to live this new life after the loved one that they didn't expect to lose is gone. And I'm a supporter. I support as many people as I can. And I'm not saying when I support people that I'm doing it financially, I'm doing the emotional support. I help as many people as I can every day without fail. And I just want people to benefit from the knowledge that I've gained and hopefully prevent them from making some of the mistakes that I did too.
Amen. Thank you very much for that introduction, Yolanda. So let's just recap. Tell us again the scenario that took place on that fateful day. Well, first, tell us a little bit about Adesha. You don't have to go into full detail, but just tell us a bit about Adesha. Some other memories, maybe some of them that you haven't shared with us yet. And then we'll kind of do the surrounding area stuff as to how she lost her life that day.
As I said before, Adesha was a giver. She loved people. She loved watching children learn and grow. She was an artist. She not only drew, but she wrote poems and haikus. She was learning how to play the guitar when she was murdered. She was a friend of everybody.
Sorry, Yolanda, one of the things that we didn't go through last week, but we did go through when we first did the show, was just what a great student Adesha was, and how well loved and respected she was through her school life. Tell us more about that, please.
Okay. Adesha, she was able to be a straight A student. She was able to retain information read it one time, never needing to reread it in order to take a test and ace a test. She was the epitome of a sponge. She just wanted to know everything. She wasn't afraid to tackle a subject that was difficult. She wasn't afraid to step out of her comfort zone in order to gain knowledge. And she was easy to get along with as far as helping them when they needed help with it. But she loved school. She graduated third highest in her class from her massage therapy class. She was third highest in that. So much so her grades were impressive that she got hired sight unseen. And the day that should have been her 25th birthday, she was going to be going to sign a contract, starting out at $25 an hour in her field.
And here's the thing, Yolanda. Once again, she was not known to police. She had no convictions or police records. There was no reason. She wasn't on the police radar. She wasn't a known troublemaker. Tell us that kind of side of her.
Adacia wasn't the kind of person to get in trouble. She never was. She didn't like conflict. You know, she was the kind of person of the perception that you can have a conversation and work whatever issues you may have out. We always felt that she was safe. You know, we had that perception that Adacia was safe because she didn't get in trouble. She wasn't a troublemaker. She didn't deal with people who got in trouble. You know, she was smart about her friendships, but she was also a friend that operated with understanding. You know, and when she did have friends that were in trouble, she would help them, you know, work their way out of it. And no, she was never on the police radar. She had never been in trouble in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I was more subject to be in trouble with the cops because I drive fast, but she didn't do that. And for this to happen to her, the way that it happened to her, and then the lies that happened after, it's just very disrespectful to her life. And I, for one, cannot have that.
Just tell us, as a recap, what happened that day that she lost her life. Give us some of the background behind that, and then some of the lies that were told in order for them to re-victimize and criminalize her in such a way that was to cause the heartache and the heartbreak that your family ended up having to go through once they've got past the fact that she's actually no longer with you.
Adacia, very much like me, you know, believe how much fun could you have if your birthday was on a Sunday or a Monday? Yeah. Her birthday was on an upcoming Monday. So she was celebrating her birthday the weekend before. You know, hanging out with friends, talking, playing cards, just doing basic things, nothing spectacular, not getting up and going out to no bougie party or anything like that, hanging out at a club. The young lady that she was hanging out with told her that she knew of a party that they could go to that evening, which was July 7th.
I've never asked you this question, but I am going to ask you it now. And again, based on what I've watched on American Sons, it's irrelevant or it's relevant. But the friend that she was with that suggested the party, what was the friend like? Was the friend known to you, and was the friend known to the police?
That's kind of a two-sided question there. She was a neighbor that lived a couple of doors down that Adacia had been acquainted with for the last couple of, her last couple of months of life. I saw her, the young lady in passing. She was a few years older than Adacia. But as far as having any kind of conversation other than hi neighbor, I didn't. But Adesha was teaching the young ladies' children how to play cards. Showing them how to play tongue, showing them how to play spades. And she would go down and sit down, and they would sit on the porch and play spades all night long.
But she wasn't known to the police either, was she?
Well, I don't know what her personal background is exactly. I know that through relationships, as far as blood, she's known because she's related to a cop.
Okay.
But
I suppose the point I'm trying to get at is Adesha being with this lady didn't actually pose a threat or raise any flags.
No.
Yeah?
No.
So it's not something that you said, oh, by the way, what was she doing with her? You know what I mean?
No. Right.
That's the point I'm trying to get at. This person that Adesha was with doesn't raise a flag as to say, oh, well, no wonder. There's always trouble there kind of thing. You know, there are those kind of people that you get, right? Where you try and stay your children away from. And if anything did happen and you heard that person was in the mix, you wouldn't be surprised when you heard what the outcomes were, because that's the kind of person they are. This lady that that we're referring to hasn't got that kind of background, whether she's known to police or she's got family by police or all the rest of that. She wasn't a troublemaker. She wasn't known by the police to be a troublemaker. She wasn't somebody that was known in the community to be a troublemaker. Nobody was warning their children not to go about her or be around her. She wasn't anybody that raised any flags or caused any concerns as to whether or not your children played, hung out with, or spoke to her, right?
Right. None of that. None of it.
So her spending her day getting ready to party and enjoy her birthday with this lady, and this lady saying, oh, I know where there's a party, let's go. There's absolutely nothing suspicious. There's nothing malicious. There's nothing twisted in any of that, right?
Right.
They were just out to have a good time. It was her birthday, and this lady knew of where there was a party and thought, well, okay, I got an invite. I can go in there. You can come in there with me. And there's not many of us that's never done that. You know how many parties that I've gone to where I've had an invite and I've actually taken somebody in there with me? You know, oh, well, you know, I'm going out. Where are you going? Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Oh, come with me. I've got a party to go to. Not an issue.
Right.
Tell us some more. What happened when where she went and what she did.
Well, like I said before, based on which witness statement you want to believe, 15 minutes or 45 minutes after my daughter arrived at that party, she was dead. The story goes, and I'm sorry I have to say it that way, but honestly, there's 5 different stories. But the witness account goes this way. Heard a firecracker, saw her fall. I got that from 8 different people.
Heard a firecracker, saw her fall.
Right.
That's it.
That's it. She falls backwards. But the thing is, these people are placed throughout a backyard that's dimly lit with 40 people at the party. They're all in different locations, but everybody could turn around, locate Adesha in time to see her fall, which I find highly unlikely.
Rehearsed?
Not only rehearsed, more like
coerced.
Scripted.
Yeah.
This is what you're going to say.
Yeah. This is what happened. This is all you saw.
Right, and stick with that.
Yeah, mind you, being at a police officer's house, he definitely knows what to say,
right,
and how to orchestrate others. So this is his stage that he's setting up for an event that has taken place.
Yeah,
right. And I mean, the fact that it took him 25 minutes to call 911 in the first place, I'm not believing anything they say. If they told me the sky was blue, I have to tell them they were lying. Because come on. 25 minutes to call 911, and out of 40 people at a party, only one person called, and it just so happened to be his wife.
And their version of events was that she was lap dancing with him, and she reached for his gun and shot herself with his gun?
Well, that's one. That's kind of it. Let me give it to you. First story was it was a side by side hug. The gun accidentally went off. Then it was a face to face hug. The gun accidentally went off. Then it was a she was hugging him from behind and the gun accidentally went off. She was trying to get him to dance with her from behind and the gun went off. Then they say, after I tell one reporter what my daughter did for a living, then the story comes out, oh, she was doing this exotic dance on the ground and she was reaching up, grabbing at his waist and the gun went off. All of that's flat out bullshit lies. Adacia, one, doesn't dance, never danced, was not a dancer. So all of that is just flat out lies. As far as her trying to get him to dance with her while he's dancing with his wife, in her mind, and I could say that, he was where he was supposed to be with his wife. She's not interested in him. He was sloppily built, not taking care of himself physically, and he's married, so he's not a candidate for anything for her. Taking her profession and besmirching it, and I'm not talking down to the exotic dancers because they go through a lot and they deal with a lot, but you're not going to take my daughter busting her ass to graduate third out of 120 and getting the skills that she had that made it possible for somebody to offer her a job paying $25 an hour and they never laid eyes on her. Just looked at her resume and her grade. To turn around and say she was on the ground grinding, doing some sort of dance for this man, if you want to call him that. Now,
I mean, the lengths that they went to decharacterize her, because that's what they did. They decharacterized her, didn't they?
Absolutely.
I think they attempted with each article and each statement released. I'm sorry to cut you off. It seems like they came up with these stories in an attempt to see which one the media would buy, to see which one was logical, and none of them actually were. The thing about it that was so crazy to me is that law enforcement made it so that none of these questions had to be dug for. All of the suspicions and all of the questions settled right on the top of what they attempted to cover up. It was as if they used no effort. And every story that they came up with rose more questions and more questions and more questions.
Exactly.
So here's the thing. Before we go to the lap dancing, the dancing, and the accidental shooting, as you said at the beginning, just before that, Yolanda, what you mentioned was there was 3 or 4 other versions that they gave of her either behind, in front, at the side of, getting a hug, and the gun accidentally going off. Right, but here's the question. Right, wouldn't they ask why the officer had his gun in his holster without the safety catch on anyway?
Apparently not. You know,
but wouldn't you? The question would have to be, why would you be at a party with the safety catch off your gun when you're actually not on duty and you're not in response to a criminal activity?
Well, that's like asking them why are they lying.
No, I agree. But the bottom line is, here he is at a party, and they're trying to claim that in an accidental hug, the gun has gone off. Now, how does the gun accidentally go off in a hug if the safety catch is on? If the safety catch is not on, the question has to be why. Why wasn't the safety catch on? Because if the safety catch been on, even in an accidental hug, we would not be having this conversation.
Well, that's if we want to try to believe that the gun was ever actually in a holster.
No, we know this. We're just trying to deal with the facts of what they're suggesting.
But that's it, Kervin. That those are not facts that were ever proven.
Amen. Okay.
This story says he had the gun in the neoprene in the waist holster, I got a neoprene in the waist holster on my gun right now. You cannot reach my trigger.
And that's the thing. You know this because you carry a gun yourself.
Right.
Right. In your
and on top of that,
so you
they never produced a holster.
Yeah. So you
They never produced a holster.
You go through the same process he does in your work every day. You have to dress yourself in the same way. You have to carry the same thing. You've got to have the same alertness around you. How easy is it for somebody to come around you, hug you, and your gun to accidentally go off?
It is.
My question is because there are so many different articles and so many people commenting on the professionalism of the officer and this specific gun. This is a .40 caliber, if I'm not mistaken. So several articles go into saying that this .40 caliber specifically doesn't have a safety trigger, but because that it's carried by law enforcement, it does. So did we ever determine which was which? Did it have a switch or did it not?
No, there was no. The gun does not have a safety trigger, but the way that the only way that the gun can be fired, okay, it's like it's got two little prongs on the outside and then a little switch on the inside. This is all part of the trigger. All three have to be depressed at the exact same time in order for the gun to fire. Found out through some research on the officer that he had his gun augmented to fire with only 6.5 pounds of pressure, whereas initially the gun has like 9 pounds of pressure. So that means that your average 6-year-old could have fired his weapon if they found it.
Wow.
Now, to say that did they say that there is any fingerprints belonging to? For one, the officer says that he's reluctant to say that Adacia pulled the trigger on herself, and then the report also says that there is never a fingerprint from him on that gun. I don't see how that is. But if you didn't pull it, she didn't pull it. I'm just it's just a hard thing to ascertain.
They never said whose fingerprints were found on the gun. But we know for a fact that there was no gunshot residue on Adacia, on her hands, her wound track, or her clothing. All three were tested. No gunshot residue. Therefore, she was not shot close up. We also know by the entry wound that she was not shot close up. Yes, it is a .40 caliber gun. I carry a .40 caliber gun. I know what size hole it'll make if it's close to you. But if that bullet has to travel a little bit of a distance, as it somewhat slows down, the hole will be smaller. Adacia's entry wound is no bigger than the tip of your pinky, where it should be the size of a quarter if it was up close like they claim.
So even in that statement, the evidence suggests that Adacia was shot at a distance and not in some close embrace or love dance, lap dance, body dance, seduction dance, or any other suggestion that they'd care to throw in.
Right. And on top of which, if Adacia was shot close range, the bullet would have torn through her. If she was petite for her size, solid but petite. And that's a very high velocity, high caliber weapon. The bullet came to rest in Adacia's back behind her heart. It never exited her back. You could see the impression of the bullet. You could feel it if you touched her back. The coroner removed the bullet. And now I'm saying all that because the police department lied to me and my family and said, oh no, we'll probably never find that bullet. That bullet tore straight through her. I'm sorry to say it that way, but it did. That bullet came out her back. We'll never find it. And my response to them is, you're a lying sack of shit and your name is Dirty Draws.
Wow. I mean, here's the thing. You go through all of that. You're trying to piece together how you lose your daughter, And then in the middle of all of that, you're still trying to make sense of all the allegations, accusations, and suggestions that are being made, knowing that everything that they're saying does not represent the girl that you know your daughter to be. Right. So I would imagine that would be stumbling block number one, right? So how do you get yourself right to be able to cope with having to, because you've just lost your daughter, Yolanda. Adesha was your eldest, right?
Yes.
So that's your firstborn, right? That's like tearing your heart out and throwing it on the street. But you're not given an opportunity to just mourn and grieve her and get comfort amongst your friends and family who would probably want to share and honor her memory, because you've got all this crap coming out. How do you deal with that firsthand?
It's very difficult because you're trying to rebound from the shock. And it's not just a emotional or a mental shock, it's a physical shock to your body. You feel it. It feels like somebody has their hand in your chest and they're squeezing your heart and they don't want to let it beat. And that's just the best depiction I could give you of it. And then on top of which, you have to sit up here and try to discern between the lies and the truth. You got the media constantly bothering you like vultures. Well, they want a soundbite from you for every little story. But I mean, I could at least say that the reporters started saying, how many damn more stories are they going to come up with when they would come to see me? They come to see me after each story, and bear in mind, for the first 5 days from the day she was shot till that Thursday, they changed the story every day. And the reporters would come over, give me a hug, tell me, okay, now this is what they say in the day. And that's really fucked up to hear that come out of a reporter's mouth.
Yeah.
But it is the hardest thing to do, and there's no time to breathe. You're struggling to breathe. You feel like you're drowning. Your pain is so immense. It's so heavy. It feels like you're drowning in it.
But you wasn't alone, because you'd have had other family members who would have been trying to help you through this. How were they feeling, operating, responding to the very same things that you were witnessing, while you all were trying to get to grips with the fact that she's just lost her life?
Anger and rage. You know they're lying. You know they're hiding facts. And then they're insulting your intelligence on top of that. They're telling you, you're so stupid, you're going to believe whatever we tell you. You know, and it's just, it's like that dull headache in the middle of your head that you can't reach, and it's just there all the time.
I mean, if your child, son or daughter, got ran over by a car, a bus, or a truck, crossing the road or whatever, you know, you get the knock on the door. They'd give you the information. Your daughter was run over at 2:15 p.m., whatever it was, and taken to the local the hospital. Everything was done in order to try and resuscitate her, but unfortunately, she died in A&E or on the operating table. We're extremely sorry that we have to bring you these news. But there'd be some attempt to. How did you actually receive the news?
I was at work. I had saw Adesha an hour and a half before she was killed. I was getting ready for work. I was on my way to leave. She told me she was going to go to the party. My ex-husband, her father, our son, and one of our cousins, my cousin, was at the house as well. I talked to her, told her I loved her. She told me she loved me. And she went over to speak to them. I drove away. Less than an hour and a half later, I get I can't seem to be comfortable in my skin. So I'm walking around work about 5:15 in the morning. I get a phone call from a phone number I don't recognize. I almost didn't answer it, but some said, I know who calling. And it was my daughter's, my youngest daughter's ex-fiance, calling me and telling me I need to get to Sinai Grace, that they should been shot. And it just, that information just flew through my brain so fast. I swear, if it was like lightning. And I had to make him repeat it. I got off the phone. I was in the process of getting ready to walk out the room I was in, and it was like somebody just grabbed me by the shoulders and forced me back down into the chair. And I knew my daughter was gone. I called my ex-husband, who, not Audacious father, but my second ex-husband. He and I worked together. Told him that I needed to leave, that she was shot. And he adored Audacia too. And went to the hospital. And I knew by the way that they were taking so long, that they were getting security to come around the way I was going to talk with the doctor, and that my daughter was gone. I'd been at the hospital enough to witness that routine enough to know what that was. The doctor comes in, has the nerve to try to get herself comfortable in the chair, trying to tuck her legs under her as she's sitting and whatnot. And I found that extremely irritating. And I remember thinking, you're in the right place to be doing all this dumb shit. Because I really wanted to just punch her there. But she was extending this out unnecessarily. She told me where Daisha got hit. Got ready to tell me something else, and I told her, just cut to the chase, did my child die? And she said, yes. And right as I got ready to sit down, my baby girl and her ex-fiance came into the room. I told the security that was out there, they can leave. We don't need them. They kind of looked stupidly at each other, as if, how did I know what they were there for? I told my daughter, her and her fiance just hit the floor. And then I told the guy that was there from the social workers department that I needed to see her. And he seemed to be shocked by that. You want to see her? Yeah, because it might not be my daughter. Went to the room. And it's really strange. This guy had the nerve to take a deep breath like he was doing something highly emotional for himself. And opened up the door, and they had my daughter in this little room on a gurney. And I know, just like everybody else, the first time you see your loved one laying there so still, so incredibly quiet, absolutely everything about them comes back to you. And I mean, I could see everything from me giving birth to her to those few minutes before I went to work. It went extremely quick.
You know, that moment you saw her laying there and you knew she was dead. What did that moment feel like? Can you remember it?
Like I was dying. Like I was dying extremely slow. It felt as though something in the floor was leaching the life out of me. I never thought I would do that. I never thought that I would see my child dead.
Not that way anyway. If you were to think of, nobody thinks of how their child might die or if their child would die before them.
Right.
But that's not the way you would ever imagine that somebody would bring news of you losing your child if you had to hear that news at any time.
Absolutely not. No. I could better feature a car accident, a drunk driver losing control. I could even better accept a house fire than somebody who's supposed to protect people took mine away for no reason.
So here's the thing, Yolanda. You're at the hospital. You know, your daughter's now been pronounced dead. There's all these words and whispers going around as to how it happened, and you guys are all trying to get your head around it. You're angry. You're annoyed. It doesn't make sense. There's a whole pile of confusion. There's chaos going on. People trying to cover stuff up, and there's all of this going on. Then when it's all died down, you go home at some point. You know, when you walk into the house, I can only imagine. It's almost is there a moment when you accept that she ain't never coming back? She ain't never coming back through those doors again. You'll never see her in the house again. Is there a moment that dawns on you as you? It might not have dawned on you while you was at the hospital or anywhere else, but you know, when you walk back into the house where you lived, the house where she lived, the house where she grew up. When you walk back into that door after it's all said and done and all the chaos has died down, well, the chaos in your heart hasn't, but the external chaos that's gone on outside there, you know, you're now into your home now, and it's just you and whoever it is that's there with you, your family, etc. You know, when you walk through that door, is there a moment where you acknowledge she ain't never coming back through that door again?
For me, I got in the house. I told my son's ex-fiance, that the day she died, she started to cry, and I know I couldn't witness that. Like, I wasn't where I could comfort her. I went upstairs, and Audacia's room was right next to mine, but I had to walk past her room to get to mine. And I stepped in her bedroom, and I looked at her bed, I looked at her stuff, and I just took this incredibly long, deep breath, because her dog was laying on her bed, curled up, and she didn't want to get up off the bed. So I knew she knew. I got the dog to come out the room, and I closed Audacia's door. And that was it. That was the finality of her no longer being here with us. I left that door closed. My grandchildren, which the older two are only 3 years old, one asked me, could he knock on her door on the 4th day? He said, I know she's not in there, but can I at least knock on her door? And when he did that, everybody that was upstairs just started crying. Then the eldest of my grandchildren, which they were only 4 months apart, he looked at me and he said, Grandma, did somebody kill my Auntie Day Day? And I said, yeah. And you would have thought he was a full-grown man, because he understood every bit of that, and the anger on his face is not something you want to see from a little 3-year-old.
You know, it's probably the deepest we've ever gone with you, Yolanda, on this. And I'm really thankful that you're opening up and sharing this level of vulnerability with us. And I just hope that people that are listening are actually getting a real understanding of what this journey has been. So there you are in the house, and you've now had to accept that it's she ain't coming home.
Mm-hmm.
At what point? At what point did you find your? Did you ever just drop down to your knees and cry? Was there a point where you just let it all out?
Not before her funeral.
Yolanda, I don't know what's going on with what you're talking in, but it is a bit muffled. I'm not sure if you're too close to your mic or whatever you're using, but it's not as clear as I'd really love it to be, so that they can hear you as clearly as I want to hear you.
Hold on one sec. Let me fix this.
Because this is absolutely powerful, and I really want to get this message across today.
Okay, that better?
Much better.
Okay. I didn't really have a chance to break down. I was immediately in fight mode. I had to deal with the press. I had to deal with not having her birthday party, but going to pick out her casket, and then getting her clothing and family members up from down south, her friends, organizing the funeral and whatnot. I never had a chance to break down about it. I cried hard at her funeral, but I cried the hardest I've ever cried in my life. And 2 years prior, I lost my mother, and I thought that was the worst thing in the world to me. But when I sat at her gravesite and looked down in that hole, knowing that it's cold, dark, and damp, and that my baby is never coming out of it, that right before that casket closed was the last time I was ever physically going to lay my eyes on her. That's when I broke down. And a friend that I've known at that time, about 12, 13 years, he just held on to my shoulders and prayed over me while I cried.
No mother should ever have to go, no parents should have to go through that. And I suppose I don't think ordinary people won't get the fact that up until the funeral you actually have no time to grieve, because you said it, you was in fight mode. Because from the get-go, there was decharacterization, criminalization, and all sorts of suggestive allegations being made against your daughter, which prevented you from focusing on what you and your family needed to be for each other.
Right.
In this terrible time that you were going through, because you had to step into fight mode based on the suspicions you had, the lack of evidence, and
the bold-faced lies.
The bold-faced lies. So here you are now at the funeral. You're laying your daughter to rest, and for the first time, you're free of all of that BS. They're about to close the casket, and this is the last time you'll ever set your eyes on her again. Was that the first time that you accepted that this is it? It's over. She's gone.
I would say that's the first time the reality of how final it is hits you. That it doesn't make a difference if I live a minute or 100 years more. It's final. That's the last of a Daisha here on earth.
Yeah. I think we get that, Yolanda. I want to, for this time, I just want to thank you for just really going into that in the depth that you have. I don't think we thought. I don't think we knew we were going to go that deep with you today. I don't think you was intending to go that deep yourself. But I think it's important that we look at the pain before we talk about the healing, because
Right.
for there to be healing, there must have been pain. You know, healing don't come without pain. But I think we
Right.
need to have an understanding of what that pain is and how bad that pain gets, to know that here you are, this time later, in a much better and stronger place. It doesn't bring your daughter back. But at some point, you would have had to have started making sense of it all in order to maintain your sanity. At what point, you know, so the funeral, and I don't want to minimize the funeral. It was a big occasion. I can see just how impacting the funeral was for you. So you come away from the funeral and all the emotions that go with it. She's now laid in the ground, and yes, as you know, as we black people do, you know, there's a wake and there's a remembering and there's all of that going on. But at some point, you would have to take back up the fight again, right?
Yeah.
When you took the fight back up, how long did it take you to go through that? Because I would have imagined that pain that you felt looking at her for the last time in the casket, right, didn't last for just a moment.
No, not at all.
This is a pain that must have gone on with you for a while.
Yes. It's not like there's a pause and then you start again. It's always something going on, always something being said, done, shown. And, you know, you try not to be, or at least I tried not to be reactionary, because I needed to allow myself to be analytical and look at things and analyze what was said, what wasn't said, how it was said, how it wasn't said. And it's hard to do that when you're in that much pain. And that's one of the reasons why I try to help as many people as I can, because I've already been there. I know how numbing that is and how impossible it is to really think. So you need that outside ear to pay attention to what's going on. And it was a lot, because not only was I dealing with my pain, I had my children, my ex-husband, all of my family. And on top of it, I'm the one that they were taking their cues from. So if I didn't stay strong, everything would fall apart. They would just go into a reactionary mode. And my family is extremely tight. Our family creed is my life, my family. And that is tattooed on the males in our family. They wear it on their neck because they take it that serious. My family, my life. And I had to not only be working on getting audacious justice, I had to make sure that I was always aware of where they were, what they were doing, so that it wasn't going to become a situation where things got out of hand or escalated to the point where I, was going to have to step in and do something or try to prevent something from happening.
Here's the thing, Yolanda. At some point, you'd have had to have taken your focus off what was going on as far as the investigation and the pursuit of justice was concerned, and you'd have had to have turned your eyes towards what was going on. And you just said it there. You had to see where they were at. So, did you have to dismiss the healing process for you initially while you focused on everybody else for a while?
Yeah, I had to put myself last, and I would sit up at night. I worked midnights anyway, so I'm a night owl, I'm up. But I would come home, make sure everybody was straight, doing what they're supposed to do, going where they're supposed to get, and take that little bit of time on me because I had to get used to, which I never did, not hearing Adesha stir around in her room because we shared a wall. Our headboards was on the same wall. So I'm not hearing her. I'm not seeing her. I'm used to coming home and she's there, give me a hug in the morning. We laugh about something or other. I had to refocus everything I did and then burn the midnight oil, so to speak, on the fight as well.
In the midst of that, let me just ask you one question, Yolanda. In the midst of that, how many times would you go into her room? And what would you do when you went into her room?
We stayed in the house maybe 4 months after her death. And the first week and a half, I didn't go in her room. It was probably a month before I actually did go in her room. And I just clinked up. And I kind of talked to her while I did it. Girl, why you leave all that stuff over there? You knew better than that. I see you was eating. You were the one that ate that piece of cake that was missing. Took care of the dog, took care of her puppy. And I'd come out the room and close the door again. My cousin, she wanted to do these collages for myself, Adesha's father, and my sister. So we went in her room. We collected some of Adesha's favorite things, her CD covers from her CDs, some photos of her, some of her favorite clothing. And she used all of that as well as some jewelry to make collages for her, for us. The hardest part was going in her room right before we moved and cleaning everything out. Because that meant I couldn't walk in the room. Yeah, I couldn't walk in the room and smell her perfume anymore. I couldn't walk in this room and see her stuff the way she wanted it. That was very hard.
How was the next birthday? I know I'm jumping ahead.
That's okay.
Because she died the day before her birthday. She was out celebrating her birthday. So what was her next birthday like for you?
I made it a big blowout for her. I myself spent $2,300 on it. Her brother spent maybe an additional $400. But I did this big party for her.
Was that just your way of keeping her alive?
It was giving her the birthday that she should have had. Celebrating Adesha the way she should have been able to celebrate herself. So I had it at a park that we do the barbecues at for her. Miles' house had T-shirts made, dog tags made. I had friends donating stuff. Big grill, food was donated, a whole lot of stuff. And the party started, it was a 12-hour party. We started at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon and it ended around 1 o'clock in the morning. But it was a 3-day event that I put on for her. I celebrated her last day on Earth. We did a vigil for the night that she was killed on the 8th. And then we celebrated her birthday on the 9th. And it ended with fireworks.
Do you know people who are listening now have been through something similar? Will hear your pain. They'll understand if they've been through what you've been through. They'll understand that. Some of them might be in different phases of that journey. Some of them have just lost their loved ones. Some of them have recently lost them. Some of them have lost them a long time ago.
Right.
But we're talking about the healing through the pain. And so far we've really focused on the pain, and the pain is immense. It's immeasurable. Undeniably so. And it makes it 10 times worse because there is no justifiable reason you can give for your daughter not being here. She didn't die in a car accident. It wasn't cancer or leukemia or, she didn't fall off of a mountaintop or get run over by a train. She didn't even get attacked by some lunatic that was robbing a bank.
Right.
For many families that we speak to, that you speak to, we support, that you support, we're talking about losing loved ones at the hands of trigger-happy law enforcement officers that are engaged to serve and protect. And that's a whole nother ball game that people outside of this family of police brutality just cannot comprehend. It's not the same as losing someone in a gang fight. If some thugs did a drive-by and killed Adesha, you'd be sad, and you'd go out on the streets and you say, you guys need to put your guns or your knives down or whatever it is, and but you'd bury her and you'd love her, and that's almost, I wouldn't say it's acceptable, but it's understandable when we lose people that way, through crime or through accidents or through illness. All of that is explainable, justifiable. We can mourn in a decent, in a reasonable way. We can begin the grieving process because we know that we've lost someone, and that's. But when we've lost someone in this way, there are so many questions that are left to answer that you can't rest. You can't grieve. You can't mourn. And the healing process takes so much longer because you spend so much more time fighting this battle that we inevitably can't win. So where do you draw your strength from, Yolanda?
My love for her. And that's it. It's interesting how you can turn all that energy and love that you have for that person into energy to fight for that person. You would think it's a big mental transition, but it's not. It's just what you do to survive, to be able to honor them. She didn't deserve what happened to her by any stretch of the imagination. So that became my job, to get her justice. I fought to get her here. I can fight for her now.
Yeah. So, How does the healing process start, Yolanda? How does it start?
It starts with acknowledging that you're in pain. You know, you're not going to heal if you keep denying that you're in pain. And you have to be able to find a way to get it out, an outlet that does not get you locked up, doesn't cause harm to others, but allows you to be honest 100%. And what I did was I found what worked for me was writing about what I was feeling, how I was feeling. And you don't have to show it to anybody, but just get it out and be honest. If whatever it is, I want to kill them, I want to stomp them till they is whatever. Say it. You know, read it out loud to yourself so you can hear yourself say it. You don't have to worry about somebody else hearing or reading. You can burn it later. You can shred it, whatever. But as long as you get it out, you will begin to get better.
What kind of hiccups, obstacles do you expect to encounter as you try to go through that healing process? What are the obstacles?
Your biggest obstacles is memory. And I'm just going to be honest. Because you're going to see something that triggers a memory. You're going to hear something that triggers a memory. You're going to smell something that triggers a memory. You know, you're going to have those days of deja vu. You're going to have those moments of, oh, if they were here, I would show them this, or they would like this. You're going to go through those things. But the thing is, don't try to avoid them. Don't try to deny that they're happening. You know, the best thing you can do is take a deep breath. And if you can, move slowly and let yourself go through it. When I say it'll pass, the heaviness of it will pass where you'll be able to function again. Not that you're not going to remember or think about it, but you'll get better at it. You know, and I tell people all the time, breathe. When your loved one is killed, it's a subconscious thing that happens that you don't realize until somebody tells you, breathe, that you've been taking shallow breaths. And that you're functioning on that. You know, you're not really breathing. You're not really moving forward. You're damn near just holding your breath. And just give yourself time to move through those. All the emotions are like a roller coaster, and you're always on it, no matter what you're doing. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. When you have those worst days, just tell people, it's too much for me today. I need to be by myself. I need to do whatever. Give yourself that kind of peace where you can deal with it. I mean, I have a permanent FMLA because the doctor, you know, feels that there'll be days where I can't function. I won't be able to talk, or, you know, I won't be able to deal with people. But we all go through that. That's a natural reaction of somebody taking your loved one and then walking around like they didn't do shit.
In the middle of all of this, Yolanda, in the middle of all of this, you're going through your grieving, you're going through your mourning, you're trying to get some healing and understanding, you're trying to get some justice. There's all of this going on. You then decide to launch Post, Protect Our Stolen Treasure. Well, right. Where did that come from?
Meeting with some other family members here in Detroit, Martilla Jones, Kevin Kellum, and Kimberly Davis, all of whom lost a loved one to the police murder. The group that had brought us together really weren't on the points that we needed taken care of about fighting for our loved ones, getting justice, finding out what we could have about the police system, how the laws governed them, all of that stuff. They were not there. And me, I have very short patience when I can see where it needs to go, and people aren't trying to get there. So I talked to them, told them we need to form our own, and they agreed. We need to do something ourselves because they are not going to get our justice. They're not interested in it. So we talked, told everybody come up with some names, put them in a hat. We'll pull one out, and whatever comes out, that's what we're going to be. And Kimberly had came up with Protect Our Stolen Treasures post, and it was the best fitting one, and it was true. We're like a post. Once we're set, we're not moving. So we created post, and through our working together, we are helping each other to heal. Through the things and the information that we're getting from each other and to each other, we're helping each other heal. We found that what's healing, I know what's healing for me, is being able to help others. I put my love and my energy into being able to help others. And that way I keep my daughter's legacy alive. I keep her legacy true. And I'm also doing what I feel God said, this is what you're going to do. Regardless of anything else in your life, this is what you're going to do.
We're going to stop there with you for just a minute, and we're going to bring in our support guests just to really round up, because we really want to move forward now with the healing process and the stuff and the work that you're doing through post, some of the families that you've been helping, some of the outcomes that we've seen, and some of the work that we've done here on issues today in the last half hour. But before we do that, we've had Patrick Lane, almost redundant, sitting on the sidelines. And I just really want to bring him in for him to just round up what he's heard over this hour and a half as we've just listened intently to the story that you've just shared with us. And I can't thank you enough for being as frank and as open as you've been on this particular show, Yolanda. I do believe it's going to be a real learning experience and a heartfelt one for many people that are listening in today. But yeah, let's just bring in Patrick if we can. Patrick, we've never gone that deep with Yolanda, but I don't think I'm not even sure if we've ever gone that deep with anybody, but that's just powerful stuff we've just been listening to. Do you want to round up some of the stuff that you've heard?
Absolutely powerful. I think that the first thing that we need to at least acknowledge is that Yolanda is a truly remarkable person. One of the strongest people. It takes many, and I've asked since being thrust into this situation, how long does it take you to recover, to find your footing? And Yolanda has this amazing ability to recover and to recoup and to focus that is truly extraordinary. But what we're talking about here is we're talking about the steps of and the cycles of grief. And that's what we're all going through. We have the first one is denial and isolation. I don't think I need to explain that. We all do that. It's when the event has been so traumatic that we really can't emotionally accept it at that time. Then we move into anger. And as we know, anger usually masks our pain. It's really pain that masquerades as anger, but that's part of it. Then we go into the bargaining. If only I had done this differently. If I had done this, and what if? And that becomes a part of our grief. Depression, and also I want to state that grief is not a one size fits all type of model. But we go to depression, and then we go to acceptance, which it doesn't bring the sun, but it brings clarity, I think. I like the model of the cycles of grief that have 7 steps instead of the 5. The 6th step, the 6th cycle would be reconstruction and working through, which I think Yolanda has an extraordinary ability to of that. That's her strength. And then we go to, and this is important, acceptance and hope. And I really think that Yolanda has given hope to so many people. I know that she has given hope to so many people. And what I would add is that as we're going through this, we have to change. Life is about adaptability. And these types of events absolutely force us to change. And I think that our success and our well-being is contingent upon our ability to change. We have to learn to accept help. We have to learn to ask questions. We have to learn to be honest with our feelings. And to know that despite what we're feeling, we are not alone, but it feels very much like we are alone. Something else that happens, as you said, it's a traumatic event if you lose any loved one, especially a child, through death, through a disease or a car accident. It's multiplied when it's done by someone who is supposed to protect us. It's even further complicated and muddled when those people that we expect to protect us and have killed our loved ones begin to denigrate their character. And that's what we're going through. At the same time, when we consider people who have gone through this, we are thrust in impossible situations. We have just lost a loved one through an unexpected traumatic event. Immediately, we have to plan a funeral and a service and all that entails. And it is just, you are in such a dark hole. And I think what we need to, and then I'll be quiet, but I think what we need to understand is that, and what I've learned is that to heal, you have to go through these cycles, but you have to also find your tribe of people, right? Those people that can encourage you, that can impart ways forward in you. And we have to realize that, and I've realized this more so than ever before, that there is power in a group, like this group at the round table holds me down. And even when I see a member that is going through something, or I'm going through something, a member of this group will give me that word that I need to get me back to a place that it's bearable. So we have to recognize where we're at. We have to recognize what cycle we're in. And above all, I think that we have to be willing to change, right? We're going to have to be willing to grow through this and to be more than we ever. I'm a private person. My sister Jackie is also a very private person. You will hardly ever hear us talking about our own individual things. But when you go through something like this, I think it's incumbent upon us to change and to start growing and to start reaching out and talking and finding that tribe and finding the power in a group. It's so helpful, more than I could ever detail.
Patrick, I kind of agree with you with almost everything you say. Apart from, I want to just throw this question out to all of you, because you, Dee, Yolanda, TJ, Stephanie Babb, Scott Russian, I mean, you guys have all got one thing in common. You've all lost somebody to unlawful killing and a police officer. Now, when we talk about things like the cycle of grief, there are the 4 steps, there are the 5 steps, there are the 6 steps, there are the 7 steps. There's all different types of psychologists that have produced these cycles of grief that take people through. And it does explain it. For example, if you used to look at the 4 stages of grief, they come in this fashion. The first is numbness and shock, and that's when a loss is not accepted or seen as not real. The second stage is a yearning and searching. That's where you get that emptiness, and whatever it is that you've lost is missing. So like the mourner is more preoccupied with the person who has been lost, seeking reminders and reliving memories, etc. The third stage is despair and disorganization. That's where you get that sense of hopelessness and sometimes anger, where the bereaved person may withdraw into depression, etc. And finally, you've got the reorganization and the recovery stage. As hope rekindles, and then there is a gradual return of the rhythms of daily life, etc. Now, all of these things make perfect sense when you're trying to explain them in layman's term to the average man. But the point I was trying to make earlier on is your grief ain't like normal grief. It ain't like somebody that's just been run over by a car. Your stages of grief are quite different, right? And there are added.
True.
The templates that have been given out for ordinary folk doesn't actually apply to you guys. Some elements will in a different order or whatever, but there are elements that are totally missing. How do you justify the loss of your loved one to the very industry or institution that you've been raised to believe is there to protect and serve you. The one thing that you're meant to honor and obey and follow and stand in line of, the one thing that has jurisdiction and authority over you at all times, even when you're right. How do you?
And it's further complicated. You're absolutely right, Kervin, but it's further complicated by those with people in our situation, by the extenuating circumstances that surround the event. That like for instance, why did it take them 25 minutes to call 911? We have to deal with this, right? Yeah. We have why does it take 25 minutes to call 911? Why can't, so many of us, we can't get full police reports. In Taylor's case, we still haven't gotten full police reports. They won't release the forensics where the bullet entered. They haven't released anything. So we're also on top of the normal grief that we're experiencing. We have to deal with, like Yolanda, in 5 days, they changed the story 5 times.
Sorry, Patrick, and here's the thing. Those stages of grief for people might operate in a certain cycle, and there's a certain expectation as to how long each cycle might take for most people getting the correct support. But when you're talking about an issue like this, again, yes, 25 minutes for Yolanda, right? What about the 3 hours it took for Victor White, his body to turn up dead after it was taken away from the scene where he was originally arrested? How does his father explain or understand or comprehend that grieving process or that justification? And there are so many other different, Andre Gladden, and when we talk to Dee about Andre, and what about Brian Babb? Again, if you was to take all of these different stories that we have, right, and try to put them into this template of cycles of grief, it just doesn't fit.
It doesn't. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I understand these cycles of grief, and I understand psychologists and psychiatrists. I understand all this. And this is why I believe doing this today and having you guys, Yolanda, Patrick, Dee, TJ and Stephanie and Scott, who are all going to in turn be sharing their experiences. This is almost a rewriting of these cycles of grief, because your cycles of grief are different. They're hindered, they're interrupted, they're stalled, they're snowballed. You've got to go back to square one when you hit another. All of a sudden you're going to trial, you're expecting to get a victory, and you get knocked back again. Your whole cycle goes almost back to square one again, and there you are in that very same beginning where you're back into denial again. Your numbness and shock. You're back to when we're talking about the 4 stages of grief, as I was just talking about just now. You're back to numbness and shock again. Right, where you're not accepting the decision. It's a different element, but it's the same feeling. You're still going for the same thing. Sorry, Patrick.
No, you're absolutely correct. It is a different thing, and as I said, grief is not a one size fits all. Something that I like to that I ask people in this situation, especially the mothers, because they're the ones that are so impressive to me, is how long did it take you to get your footing? And the answers I've got are 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 17 years. I mean, so that grief is not a one size fit all scenario. But what's important, I think, is that life, it seems to me that life hands us some bad deals. And I think that either we can be decimated by those deals, or we can use those things. And to me, as a man who believes in God, who believes in Christ, I believe that those things that are sent to make us, that are sent to break us, will absolutely make us. Amen. And I think that's what's so extraordinary about Yolanda, is that she very quickly, in terms of this type of event, recovered and began to find her power, to turn her pain into power. And that's what has made Yolanda, and so many other people, but Yolanda probably more so than many others, so impressive to me as a person.
And that's where I'm driving at, Patrick, because the ordinary cycles of grief, the templates that are laid out by psychiatrists and psychologists and the professionals who would really love you to sit down into this box that they've created for you, right? And then they can label you if it doesn't go well and it doesn't go right and it doesn't happen in the time frame that they've allowed for it. Then there's another label that they've got for you where they can put you in this other box where you're a depressant, manic depressant, bipolar depressant. You need this medication and that medication. When we start looking at those avenues, there are so many people who have actually got through these cycles of grief with a lot more strength and empowerment because their trust, their faith has been in God. There are so many that I've spoken to, Scott Russian, yourself, Yolanda and Dee, TJ, there's people like Annalise Thomas and Maria Kofinko, and there's so many others that Veda Washington was another one who stood here on this very show and talked about how her relationship with God was so powerful for her. She didn't want to see Alton's body the way it was, because she didn't want her mind to be poisoned with that evilness or that wickedness, because she was a woman of God. And so, when we're talking about cycles of grief, I just wonder how much more, right, is that reliance, that trust, that dependence on our faith, walking and living in Christ. How much more do we need to lean on that? On how much more do we need to...
Absolutely.
Go on, Patrick.
Absolutely, Kervin. I mean, I often say to myself and ask myself, for people that don't express faith in whatever their belief is, how do they make it through without it? Because it is the rock that I've leaned on throughout. I think that also something I want to throw in to the people that are going through this is learn to pay attention to the signs that we're given. Okay. And what I mean by that, just to go just a little bit deeper, is this winter, every winter, in fact, I'm in Lawrence, Kansas, which is in Northeast Kansas. It's cold here. And I work overnights at a group home. I manage a group home for a living. And I would go out in the morning, and when I was going to get my residents up, and I'd go out in the morning to the back porch, and I would see cardinals in dead of winter in Kansas, which is unusual to say the least. I would see them every morning. They'd come and they'd perch right in front of me, and I'd be like, "Why are there cardinals here in the winter?" This happened every year. I would call my sister Jackie, and she would talk about that there were these cardinals outside of her window, every morning. And so these things, although they might seem, trivial, are signs, I believe, that we're given. That we're given to hold on. And here's what, and I'll be quiet. Here's what my underlying belief is that as painful, as unfair, as unrighteous as all of this is, our Father, our God, our Creator is able to bring glory from this. Amen. Right? And one day, and it's not today, and it's not now, and maybe it's not in this life, but one day, and I tell my sister this, one day it's going to be okay. Yeah. One day I do believe that we're all going to be where they are, we're going to be, and so that's the encouragement that I want to leave with all of our listeners today, is that pay attention to the signs that we're given, because they're important, and they will give you that little bit of strength or whatever it is that you need to hang on for that next day, right? So
the word that we're looking for is hope. That's the word we're looking for. It's hope.
Yes.
It's to keep ourselves in hope. Because faith is the substance of things not seen and the evidence of that which is hoped for. So what is it that we're hoping for? Thank you very much for that, Patrick. And yeah, absolutely wonderful. And I want to bring in Dee before we go back to Yolanda. I know Dee, you came in and out, and especially last week. But your roundup of what Yolanda has just taken us through up to this point, before we go back to Yolanda to finalize this healing process. But when you hear the pain that Yolanda was just confessing, the journey that she's been through, and the way she's just opened up, I mean, what a tremendous testimony, knowing what her journey has been to what she's doing now. Maybe you've got a few comments that you'd like to add. Please, Dee.
I might have to piggyback off Patrick because Yolanda indeed is a phenomenal woman and mother and activist, and initially for everyone whom life she touches, both physically and even just conversing over the phone and showing that support. Like I said, the footsteps she shows are definitely ones to follow. And she is a wealth of knowledge. So definitely tap into her if and when you can, because she's definitely available. It was one thing that I wanted to initially mention, and there's always a ton of questions after, we've gone over all of these things, and there's some things that ring back to me in regards to, healing for the pain. The first thing for me is that when this happens to your family member, absolutely you're in denial. You go into fight mode, then you go into searching for answers yourself, because instantly, and I think you all can agree, when things like this happen, we don't just settle for the media's take on what has occurred. We start to dig for ourselves. Yeah. And what was an initial setback for me, so we instantly turn into these investigators. We may not be qualified, but through the love and passion and desire to know the truth, we do our very best. And 9 times out of 10, we pan out with more information that was given or information that was isolated through all these reports. But for the listeners, for the family members that are going through this now and those that have not, when these stories hit the media, understand that it's the medium between the truth and a damn lie. Because our family members start to get, their characters start to get assassinated. And we get hurt. But you take a family, a mother who is seeking answers daily in regards to their loved one, their family member, and you hear all these horror stories. Believe it or not, our round table is amazing. We have phenomenal, people on the round table, but everybody doesn't think like us. A lot of people that read our stories, they solely base their opinion based on what they've read, which is 9 times out of 10, word of mouth information handed down and watered down 50 times. So if we're commenting on what's happened with our family members, if someone else is commenting, I would definitely encourage them to do their research before commenting, because you set family members back when we hear things like, oh, she deserved this, she did this, or he was crazy, he deserved that. Or he was high, he deserved that. He shouldn't have been there, he deserved that. Officers are taking out the trash, cleaning up the street. We don't want to hear that shit, because the truth of the matter is this was someone's life that had nothing to do with their birth to be able to determine this person deserves to die because they didn't submit to authority, or he was black, or he was too little, or he was too sassy, or he knew his rights way too much. So we have to be, when we hear these stories, not only just comment and share, dig into the information yourself before you comment, because anybody, we're on these steps of grieving. We don't know how long we'll be there. There's no telling what information that we'd oversee based on a comment to an article that can set us all the way back. I'm being completely honest, and I have to be completely truthful. I'm a firm believer in Christ, 2nd and 3rd generation. So I firmly believe in God and the strength that he provides day to day on a day-to-day measure. But for a moment, in regards to me going through my grief, the greatest love is the one that lays down their life for their brother. But in my mind, because I was going through something so crazy, that told me to load the clip and take justice. But I know that's not what he meant by that. But in your mental, you can go through these different stages. And I just want people to be aware of when they're commenting on these different stories that the media is letting out. Because it's not something a mother wants to read about your personal opinions or judgments about their loved ones that they now have to live without. So it's very important for us to have a heart. I often said that I would rather Andre been thrown into a lion's den and eaten by lions, and to know that they acted out of natural instinct versus a human who knows with a heart, a mind, soul, and empathy that he could have done something. These are not robots with guns. These are humans. So we expect a certain behavior, and that's not what we're getting. So there are, our loved ones are being slaughtered as though they don't matter, but they don't have to matter to you. But understand that they matter to somebody.
Thank you very much.
And I just so wanted to touch on that.
Absolutely on point, Dee, on point. And here's the thing: we're going to go back to Yolanda now. But in going back to Yolanda, just before we go back to Yolanda, and we tie up with the healing process, we started off the show by talking about this American Sons program. And I'm just going to get Yolanda to touch on that, because that is exactly what the build-up on American Sons was all about. The preconceptions and perceptions of the police officer. They were on about the bumper sticker that was on the car that probably prompted the police to stop the car in the first place. His perception of 3 black males in the car and what they were like and what they were more likely doing or being up to, etc. And the father, who was an FBI agent, who was white, who also doubted whether his friends were of the right caliber, whether he should have been with them or not, and he referred to his ghetto here. Cornrow, we call it cane row over here, you call it cornrow over there, but the father referred to it as ghetto here. But I urge you to watch this program. It's not a true story, but it definitely is a true representation of what many of the families like Yolanda, Dee, Patrick, Scott, Stephanie Babb, TJ, Teresa Gallagher, what many of these families have had to go through when their children are killed by cops. The thought process and the suggestions and allegations. And the reason why I urge you to watch it is just wait for the end and the statement that comes. When that statement comes, that's when you'll actually understand, right, what these people are talking about right here on this show. Yolanda, I just wanted you to round up, with, again, the comments I've just made on American Son, but let's just move on to the healing process.
Okay, American Sons is, man, I watched it 3 times in a row because it was so on point. It was as if somebody truly wanted to portray the information and the pain, the fear, the worry, and the stigmatisms that we all face. And they drove it home perfectly.
It could have been a true story.
It really could have. It truly could have. Because every day somebody's living some part of that scenario.
Yeah.
Somebody is, suffering from someone else's ignorance.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the most ignorant ones seem to have the badges.
Yeah. But it does get better, doesn't it, Yolanda?
Yeah.
The pain doesn't stay forever.
The pain never, no, Kervin, the pain never goes away. But what I say is that the human beings are the most adaptable creatures on the earth. We outdo chameleons. Chameleons mimic their environment in color. We assimilate to our pain pretty much the same way. We sometimes mask it so people don't see it because we don't want them to be uncomfortable. We don't want them to feel like they got to try to figure out a way to comfort us, because there is no comforting for us. But we adapt to our pain in a way that we can move forward even within it. And that's one thing that I want people to know and understand. It doesn't get better. So when people tell you time heals all things, if you really want to tell them shut up, tell them, because they don't know what they're talking about. What time does is gives you an opportunity to adjust to your new reality. and learn to live within it. That's just flat out true. I don't sugarcoat, I don't hold punches, but I'll tell you the truth and I'll stand by you while you go through what you're going through. Yeah. I'll help you as much as I can.
And is that not what our God does with us? Walks with us through our consequences, walks with us through our pain, guides us through our healing, stands with us with his strength, comforts us with his love.
Absolutely.
And that's what gives us the strength to carry on.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And for anybody out there listening that wants to get in touch with me, you can call me at 313-952-1571. That's 313-952-1571. That phone is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the number for Post, our Detroit chapter.
And you can also find it on Post, P-O-S-T, that's Protect Our Stolen Treasure, which you'll find on Facebook. They've got a website. What's the website address?
It's protectourstolentreasures.strikingly.com. And anyway, I mean, we have 5 chapters out there aside from Detroit that you can reach out to.
Can you tell us where those chapters are, please?
Columbus, Ohio, Greenville, South Carolina, Portland, Oregon, Lawton, Oklahoma, and Patrick is in Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah. And as we said last week, I believe, the first male president of a Post chapter.
Yes, he is.
Indeed.
What an honor, Patrick? What an honor.
It's quite the honor, and also I can be reached. The number for the Kansas chapter is 316-551. I'm sorry, 316-202. Excuse. Let me get back with you because I need to pull that up. I don't want to give the wrong number.
Okay.
Right.
But yeah, if we do run out of time before Patrick gets back to us, then I'm praying that he's going to just put that up on one of the posts. We'll get it out there to you. And if you just go to the Kansas chapter of the Post, you'll be able to find those details there as well, I would imagine. But here we are. We've got 3 minutes left, Yolanda. I'll use the 3 minutes wisely. I'm going to give you the 3 minutes to do whatever you want to do and say whatever you need to say in order to reach out to those many who have really struggled with police brutality and the loss of their loved ones.
Okay.
Excuse me. That number is 316-202-8479. That's the Kansas chapter of Post. Thank you.
Say it again, Patrick. Say it again one more time.
That's the number for the Kansas chapter of Post is 316-202-8479. And like Yolanda, it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yolanda, the floor is yours. Last 2 minutes.
Okay. When I say that we reach out and we help people, right now, Kevin is talking with a father. Kevin Kellum is talking with a father who has been suicidal for the last 3 or 4 months. Sometimes people just need someone to listen to them and not speak. Sometimes they need somebody to say, I've been where you are, and this is where I am now, and I can help you get here. I'm a firm believer and proponent in each one reach one, each one teach one. I can't fix everything, but I know a lot of things. I know a lot of people. I could probably find somebody near you. But the fact is, you cannot sit and suffer in silence. We have to get through this together. The change has to come from all of us. And when you feel like you're alone, you're not. All you have to do is just simply reach out. Whether it's a text message, an email, and you can email protectourstolentreasures@yahoo.com or gmail.com, and we will get back with you as well. But you have to admit to yourself that you are feeling the pain, and if you're using alcohol, drugs, sex, work, whatever, to mask it or to keep your mind off it. The fact of the matter is, in reality, it's always going to be there when you sober up, calm down, slow down, sit down. So face it and deal with it. We're here to help you. All of us here are here to help you.
Thank you very
You're
much.
not alone.
We've run out of time. We really look forward to catching up with you guys again. I'm not even sure who we've got on next week at the moment. I'll speak to TJ. Look out for our adverts. But Issues Today will be back with you next Saturday night for another Issues Today live on World Jam Global Radio, where myself and my round team table will be with us. I'm not sure who our guest is, but I'm quite sure it's going to be another exhilarating and open show. People sharing their vulnerabilities. That's all we've got time for this week. My name is Kervin Julien. I'm the host of Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. We are out of here. Thank you.